On the eve of December 1st, Matilda's father, Henry I, died, and Matilda was his only legitimate heir. In this time in history, in the early 1100s, a female had never been the heir to the throne of England before. Her father had had a huge solemn gathering, not once but twice, where Henry had his nobles swear fealty to Matilda and promise to acknowledge her as their next queen. The idea was that even though Henry was having his nobles acknowledge Matilda, what he was really asking was that they acknowledge her until she had sons, and then those sons would be the future kings of England. And Matilda's father had every intention of her producing sons. She had already been arranged in a politically advantageous marriage to a man named Heinrich V, the Holy Roman Emperor, when she was 7 years old. They had been married for 11 years before Heinrich died, but produced no children. Henry promptly married her to a 15-year-old named Geoffroy, the Count of Anjou, who she thought was below her station as a dowager empress, and was 11 years her junior. The marriage was incredibly unhappy and almost ended before it began, but eventually they had 2 sons. And now, as news of Henry's death met her, she was far away across the Channel in Anjou and pregnant. The grasp for power moved quickly. Stephen of Blois, Matilda's cousin, was in Bologna, a much closer distance to England than Matilda. When Stephen heard of his uncle's death, he quickly boarded a ship, and the moment he set foot on English soil, he rode as fast as he could 80 miles to London. After being welcomed with open arms in London, he again made haste to the great and important city of Winchester, where his brother was the bishop. Stephen seized control of the treasury, quickly summoned the Archbishop of Canterbury, and had himself crowned king. Stephen had stolen the crown. It was an ultimate move in the Game of Thrones. Stephen was not the senior male in his family. His relation to King Henry came from a female branch, and he had even sworn allegiance to acknowledge Matilda the first time Henry had summoned the nobles. But now, he was an anointed king. One by one, the nobles began to side with Stephen. He was a man. He had the church's support thanks to a letter excusing him of his original oath of allegiance to Matilda and acknowledging his coronation, and he could be the leader of an army, unlike Matilda. But even if Stephen wanted to skip over Matilda, surely Matilda's sons had a better and stronger claim to the throne than Stephen. Matilda decided to fight for her birthright, her family's birthright. But getting onto English soil safely would be her first difficult task. It took several years after her father died, but in 1139, the location was found. The mighty Arundel Castle had its own port on the Arun River that was just 5 miles from the sea. It was the home of someone Matilda knew well, Adeliza. Adeliza was her father's second wife. When Matilda's younger brother tragically drowned along with 300 others when their ship hit a rock, Henry was without an heir and 53 years old. He married the renowned beauty Adeliza, who was almost the exact same age as Matilda. Adeliza had been given Arundel Castle as part of her dower. She was now remarried and lived in the castle with her new husband. They had both decided to support King Stephen, but Adeliza and Matilda had spent a significant amount of time together. Adeliza was at the ceremony when Henry made the nobles acknowledge Matilda as his heir, and Matilda had also helped Adeliza's father when she was newly married to her first husband. And so, on September 30th, 1139, a few months shy of 4 years after her father died, Matilda boarded a small ship. She left her 3 sons and her husband in Normandy to fight for what her father had passed down to her, the throne of England. She was supported by her illegitimate half-brother, Robert, the Earl of Gloucester, and 140 knights. Robert and some of the men left immediately for his stronghold at Bristol Castle to muster support for Matilda's cause. But word of Matilda being on English soil traveled quickly. Stephen was only 90 miles away, and he immediately brought his army to lay siege on Arundel Castle. Matilda was surrounded. But the reality was, Adeliza had been the former Queen of England, and Matilda was the daughter of a former King of England and Stephen's own cousin. Would Stephen wage war against these 2 women? Stephen's brother, the Bishop of Winchester, advised a truce, allowing Matilda to leave Arundel Castle and join her half-brother Robert. This decision would begin a fight for the crown between Matilda and Stephen for the next 15 years. A war called the Anarchy.